In the cold and ruthless lands of Scandinavia, a people were born who changed the course of history. The Vikings weren't looking for easy paths, they were looking for opportunities for greatness. But their path was not straight. It was thorny and full of challenges. This video is not just about how the Vikings conquered the world, but how their philosophy and desire to change their destiny can be an example for us. Let's dive into this story, where wisdom and strength intertwine in a single, incredible journey. Part 1. The birth of heroes at the end of the world. Scandinavia is no place for the weak. Huge expanses of forests, rocky shores, and endless seas. Winters that seemed endless, and summers that barely had time to show their strength. It was a land where everyone was destined to be either brave or perish, and it was here that the strength of the Vikings was born. Their spirit was tempered by the harsh conditions, and every man in this society knew that the only way to survive was to fight. These men grew up seeing harsh nature challenge their endurance, but they learned to see it not as a threat, but as a chance. The Vikings, like the Stoics, saw the world not as an enemy, but as a teacher. They were not victims of circumstances. They used those circumstances to become stronger. How many times they faced hunger, cold, death, and every time they rose up. As Seneca said, "What makes us strong? Not the trials themselves, but our response to them." Their culture was full of symbolism. Runes, gods, it all spoke of one thing. Every person, like every event, carries meaning. The Vikings were not afraid of uncharted roads, nor were they afraid of their destiny. They went where no man had ever set foot, to find not only new lands, but also themselves. Part 2. Sword and Wisdom, the First Raids. The year 793. Lindisfarne Monastery, England. The Vikings attack, and the world shudders. This was not just an attack on a monastery. It was a signal that the Viking Age had begun. The Vikings had become a symbol of indomitable will, cruelty, and courage. But there was much more behind it. It was important for them not just to conquer, but to test themselves. Attacking monasteries and cities became not just prey for them, but part of their philosophy. They went where others saw only fear. They sought not just riches, but understanding of the world, knowledge, power. It was not just a quest for conquest, it was a quest for greatness. It was reminiscent of Stoicism. You can't control everything, but you can control how you react. Viking raids were part of their journey of self-discovery and power. They were not afraid of being misunderstood. They took the challenge and used it to grow. This was the moment when they began to realize that it didn't matter how great their power was, it mattered how they would use it. It was an important lesson for them and for us. The ability to take challenges and turn them into opportunities is the real path to success. Part 3. Conquests and what they teach us. Viking conquests were becoming more and more widespread. They were no longer just plundering, they were conquering, building, and trading. With each new campaign, their influence expanded, and with each new battle, they realized more and more the price of their power. And here, in these conquests, is a lesson worth remembering for each of us. What drove the Vikings? At some point, they realized that strength and conquest were only part of the journey. Trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange became as important as swords and shields. Their ability to adapt, learn from their mistakes, and change over time became key to their long-term success. As Epictetus said, "It is not strength to take over the world, but to learn to live in it." The Vikings learned and changed, and we can take that lesson to heart. Each new conquest was not only an act of strength, but also an act of reflection. How do you use your power to create rather than destroy? How do you control your destiny without letting it control you? These were questions the Vikings asked themselves every day. Part 4. The end of an era, the beginning of a new way. Like any great empire, the Viking Age came to an end. Christianity, internal strife, and external threats had weakened their power. But what was important at this point? Not the fall, but the ability to adapt. The Vikings began to change. Many of them converted to Christianity and became farmers and traders rather than warriors. But this transition was an important lesson for us. Despite any trials and falls, there is always a way forward. It is not he who falls down who is great, but he who gets up, said Marcus Aurelius. The Vikings were those who, despite everything, were able to find new strength and meaning. They did not die, they transformed. The story of the Vikings is not only a story of great conquests, but also a lesson in wisdom. The story of the Vikings is not only a story of great conquests, but also a lesson in wisdom. Wisdom that teaches us that strength is not only muscle, but also spirit. Stoicism teaches us, don't be afraid of hardship. Embrace it. Use it to become stronger. The Vikings went through wars, falls, and victories, but the most important thing they left us is a path we can follow. Not be afraid of change, and look for new opportunities for growth every day.